Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Sleepovers are these formative experiences. They're these things that you just remember for your entire life.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the author of 6 books about raising happy families, and I'm here with Kylie, my wife and podcast partner, mum to our 6 daughters, and we're excited to talk to you about a really tricky topic because Easter is just around the corner. That means school holidays, and school holidays means
sleepovers,
which is awesome and terrifying all at once. So
look, some of my best memories were memories that I had with sleepovers.
Same, but I also got into trouble on sleepovers as well.
Well, and I also felt ostracised, left out and alone, and kind of just completely on the outer.
Yeah, I did too many nudie runs on sleepovers. I'm sorry. I don't know what it is about boys and sleepovers, but just an opportunity to go skinny dipping or take your clothes off and run around a shopping centre car park while you're skateboarding and get paid $5 by all your friends. We had one sleepover one night. I can't believe that I just shared that. We had one sleepover one night where I went into the cupboard and my parents had this big walk-in pantry. It was an oversized pantry, and my mum always bought stuff in bulk. There was a 2-litre chocolate topping. For ice cream. No. And one of my friends, Aaron, I don't know if Aaron Turner actually listens to this podcast or not, but I'm putting you in it, Reg. Aaron walked into the pantry and said, "What do you need all that chocolate topping for?" And we started talking about how much ice cream we obviously ate. And one of the guys, we had about 4 or 5 of us sleeping over that night, and one of the guys says, "I bet you can't drink it, Aaron." And we all bet him $5 each. I think he was going to score $20 if he could drink 2 litres of chocolate topping. And he picked it up off the shelf, took the lid off, and started to drink pure chocolate topping.
My stomach is churning.
He drank more than a litre of it.
Oh, my gosh.
And then he burped, and the whole room just smelt like chocolate burp. These are the memories of childhood. Like, this is great stuff. Why wouldn't you want your kids to have sleepovers? Honestly, what's your best memory?
I can't even top those. Honestly, nudie runs, seriously. Us girls clearly were not as adventurous as you boys were, right? Because there were no nudie runs and there were definitely no eating competitions like that. I do remember once I may have been peanut buttered all over my face.
Oh, that's gross.
Because I happened to be the first one to fall asleep that night.
Yeah, cruelty. That's horrible. And the worst thing about having peanut butter on your face is, number one, it's going to be all greasy. And number two, you're not going to be able to get rid of the smell. Like, your face would have smelled like peanut butter for days, I reckon.
Yeah, and it was crunchy peanut butter. It didn't go on very nicely.
Right. So do you have any other, over-the-top stories from sleepovers, or were they fairly sedate? And like you said, you just had to make sure that everyone didn't stay up too late or say anything nasty to each other.
Yeah, I think, the main ones that I remember were just a group of girls, and we just... Truth and Dare, we used to play that a fair bit. Spin a bottle.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, but this is what I'm talking about. From, I don't know, let's say from the age of 10 or 11, maybe 12, you start to have these experiences with your friends at sleepovers where you would not do any of that. And I think this is why parents are worried, right? Because when you have a sleepover, you've got the big issues, okay? So there's safety of your child, just keeping them protected. And there's the concerns about pornography. I can't tell you how many parents have come to me and said, my 11-year-old was exposed to pornography at a sleepover. Sometimes it's the big brother coming into the room. Sometimes it's just the kids looking up rude words on their iPads or something like that. But the other, just the regular stuff, you've got kids staying up really late, which means that their willpower is low. They start to talk about things that they would never normally talk about during the daytime, but they're tired now and they're feeling close and intimate, and they start sharing.
Well, and usually the lights are out by the time you start. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not staring at each other face to face, and so you're a lot more comfortable sharing things when you don't think that anybody can see you.
Everyone's exhausted. Everyone's sugared up, and then the friendship dramas happen. It's no wonder that sleepovers are such a controversial topic, and some families just say, no, we don't do them. I think what we should do is talk about how parents can make decisions about whether a sleepover is a good idea or not. Let's do that next.
It's the Happy Families podcast.
For a happier family, try a Happy Families membership, because a happy family doesn't just happen. Details at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
We had a sleepover at our place recently. Our 13-year-old daughter had a bunch of friends over, and it was heartening. Of the 5 kids that stayed overnight, I reckon, 4 of them? 4 of them had parents who directly contacted us and said...
Well, and the 5th one we actually know personally, and they've been in our home numerous times, so they didn't need to have the same conversation.
Yeah, so every single one of these girls' parents contacted us. Our daughter gave them our phone number and said, they literally said, we don't really know you. We just wanted to kind of say hi and find out what the plans are.
It was just so nice to have that conversation, because it helped me, not knowing them either, it helped me to feel like we were in alignment. As parents, we were all on the same page. We wanted to make sure our children were safe, and I could feel a lot better when my child is spending time with their child, because they're asking the same questions that I would ask.
Yeah, it's that whole, it takes a village, so let's be aligned, and that way the children can't say, oh yeah, but we're allowed to, and they did this, and it's just so nice. The parents were all wonderful. The girls had a great time. We had one parent say, my daughter has 2 games of netball tomorrow, one starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, so we'll be there at 7:30. Please promise us that they'll go to bed at a reasonable hour. And we were like, perfect, job done. And the girls knew that it was a big deal. 5 or 6 13-year-old girls all crashing in the living room, and they know that they're being entrusted. They were great. They did the makeup thing,
the blind makeovers. I went down to check on them at 10:30, and they were all huddled in the ensuite downstairs, and they scared the living daylights out of me. They looked like pirates or something, with these big black eyes and red lips that didn't quite make their lips. And it was so nice to see these kids just having wholesome fun. The TV didn't go on. They weren't on their screens, and they were just enjoying each other's company. And they saw me walk down the stairs, and they said, we know, we're just washing the makeup off and then we're going to bed.
I'm sure that plenty of people listening to the podcast would have had experiences where concerning things have happened at a sleepover, but we've also had this thing happen just the other week with our daughter, where everything was delightful. The kids were good to each other. They went to bed on time. They didn't junk up too much on sugar.
Do you know what the highlight of that sleepover was?
Everything went nicely. No, what was it?
It was the next morning when the girls were getting ready to leave. They packed up the room. They asked me where the vacuum cleaner was. They also got the mop. They mopped my tiled floor downstairs and made sure that the room was spotless before they left.
So how do we have these successful...
It wasn't my children. It was my friends. The friends.
Yeah, that's right. How do we make this happen? How do parents who listen to the podcast get this right? I reckon there's a handful of things that we need to run through. First off, what's too young? When's the right age for a sleepover? What's your take as a mum?
Look, I think every parent is going to have, and every family is going to have their own standing on this. For us, definitely in high school, and for our 13-year-old who's almost 14, this is the first sleepover she's actually had.
And we've always had that rule. We've made a couple of exceptions in unusual circumstances, but our rule has been once you're in high school, we'll talk about sleepovers, and not until then. Yeah,
but it's not a given that just because you're a 12-year-old, you get to have a sleepover, or that, this is a really big deal.
Okay. Next thing, I would say know the family. And if you don't know the family, get to know them. Have a conversation. And I have the conversation awkwardly. I've done this a few times, and I make a deal about how it's awkward. I'll say to the person, it's really nice to meet you. This is kind of awkward since we don't know each other at all, but because we don't know each other. I've heard a handful of horror stories about sleepovers. I'm really hoping, and I'm sure that everything's going to be okay, but can I just ask a couple of questions just so that I can have that reassurance? And I will ask, who's going to be in the house? Are you going to have any visitors? Are there any big brothers? And we have a rule in our family that boys don't go into girls' rooms. So if they do have big brothers, what can we do to help the kids be separate? And usually the parents will say, we're talking about a big brother here. He doesn't want to know about the little girls and their, he's going to stay as far away as he can because he doesn't want to be near them. But I reckon we've got to ask that question and be really clear about knowing who's in the house, and the family that you're talking to then knows that you really do care.
Yeah, I think it holds everybody accountable. When we ask those kinds of questions, we're letting them know that these little people in our lives are the most important things. the most important people in our world, and we're going to do everything we can to keep them safe. And if that means we've got to have a really awkward conversation, then we're willing to, kind of take one for the team.
So talking to the other family, though, isn't always going to be enough. And I think that what we absolutely have to do is talk to our own child and just go over a few ground rules. What are your top 3 ground rules when our kids have a sleepover at someone else's?
We have some guiding principles in our home that we talk to our kids about regularly. And one of the things that we remind them before they walk out the door every day is to just remember those principles. And they help to govern the choices that they make. So that would be my first one, reminding them of...
Reminding them of our values.
Yeah. My second one would 100% be giving them an out. Sometimes it's really hard when you're with your friends to say, I want to go home, because then you're kind of either called the baby or, called all these names because you can't hack it. You can't deal with it. And so in the past, we've given our kids a code. They can just send us a little X via text. And we know as soon as we get that message that they're not comfortable being where they are. And we can give them a call and just say, look, something's come up and we need to come and get you.
Now, we got one of those text messages a few months ago from one of our kids at about... I feel like it was about 2:00 in the morning. That's what it felt like. It was probably 10 o'clock at night. And she was 45 minutes away. She'd gone with some friends to the Gold Coast. And when I got that text message, I got out of bed and I got in the car and drove 45 minutes down the highway to get her because she was feeling uncomfortable where she was. And I love that piece of advice. Just come up with a code word or something that she can text, and then you just contact the adult in the home and say, our daughter's got a bit of anxiety, or our son's not feeling well, and he's messaged us and asked us if we can come get him. And you just go get them, no matter what the time of day it is. I think that it's a terrifically important thing. Anything else that would be in your top 3?
That would be my main ones. Have you got anything that I haven't said?
Yeah, so I love those 2, and they're things that we talk about all the time. The other 2 that I always mention when I'm dropping them off is I want to make sure that they're going to be really responsible around screens, and I discourage screen use once they get past about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Sure, if you're watching a movie, that's fine. Make sure you're comfortable with the movie, and then no screens after the movie. But keep the screens off once it gets late, because willpower is low and people start looking stuff up, or they start texting people, and they end up getting into situations sometimes that are just unsafe. And the other thing is bedrooms. If you're going to go into a bedroom, make sure that you're not the only one in there, particularly if there are any males around. I hate to say it, I'm a male. I don't have a problem with males. Unfortunately, statistically, we know that if there's going to be any harm caused, males are going to be the perpetrators in the vast majority, in the highest proportion of cases. So I always tell the kids, don't be in any bedrooms with any males, whether it's the dad or whether it's...
Well, the reality is it doesn't have to be a bedroom. I think,
or in any room, yeah.
For us, as we've spoken with the kids, it's just you stay in twos. You're with your friend all the time.
So the take-home message again, reinstate your values with your kids before they go anywhere. Let them know that they can contact you at any time, so that you will, and you will come and help them. Make sure that they know the rules about screens, and to the extent that it's possible, discourage them from being in any kind of room or situation where they're alone with somebody who could be threatening to them in any way, shape or form. I think that's... and also know the family to the very best of your ability. Have the conversation with the parents and find out exactly what kind of entertainment is on the menu for the kids that night. We hope that this has been a helpful podcast for you if you're in that situation and the kids are pressuring you for a sleepover. If you would like more information about how you can make your family happier, you can find it at happyfamilies.com.au. We'd love it if you'd leave a rating and review for the podcast. People find out about the podcast when you do that, and we can make their family happier and safer as well. And we appreciate the work of Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. He's the producer of the podcast. Our executive producer is Craig Bruce. More details at happyfamilies.com.au.